the first half. They still only had a 9-point lead, but they also had the adversity of all the guys in foul trouble. I think they had 4 players with 3 fouls, including Jaden McDaniels, who only played 10 minutes in the first half. And yet the Wolves, and like one of my keys to this game on Monday's podcast was like, hey, you can't have perimeter defenders get into foul trouble against this team. McDaniels, without you're down Anthony Edwards, and he's a big part of that. Like, you got to stay on the floor. And then sure enough, they get into foul trouble. They give up 70 first half points, and only because they're shooting the ball so well are they able to kind of maintain. But there was that adversity. And then, of course, the Randle thing really throughout the game, but especially in the second half when he just got completely white hot. I thought the Wolves handled all of that pretty well, and McDaniels had a good second half after a pretty disappointing first half. And we've seen games in the past where he just kind of is in foul trouble all game and can never pull out of it. But I think he only had 1 foul in the second half, and it was just a good response in general from the Wolves to the adversity in this game.
So many different guys, too, in different situations. If you want to pick Jaden McDaniels and highlight him a little bit, I mean, look at the defense that he played on Julius Randle in the final couple of minutes. Randle had the ball on the wing right in front of the Timberwolves bench, and he tried to go behind the back to put a move on Jaden, and Jaden poked the ball away and then starts heading the other way, and Randle fouls him. Mm-hmm. At the very end of the game, McDaniels on the other baseline right across from the Wolves bench had, again, the defense on Julius Randle, who just kind of threw one up, and was it Conley, I think, who grabbed it out of bounds before he even landed, got the ball back into the Wolves, and that was it. They could dribble out the clock. Just huge plays against a guy who had scored 57. And did you see the reaction from Julius Randle after Kyle Anderson got the offensive rebound that led to the Taurean Prince bucket with 10, 12 seconds left, whatever?
Yeah.
Julius Randle was so pissed. And he went to the bench and he was hammering things, and he was visibly upset. And if you watch that replay, I mean, Kyle Anderson took that rebound from Randle. Randle was in better position, but Kyle Anderson wanted it more. And he just ripped that rebound cleanly. I mean, it was physical, but I think Julius Randle was like, I let this friggin' game get away. And he's the guy that had 57 points, and he's the guy whose team did not win the game.
Yeah, and rebounding was another big thing in this one for the Wolves. I mean, I believe rebounding was completely even. Yeah, it was completely even in this game. Each team, the box score I'm looking at, each team had 34 rebounds. Each team had 7 offensive rebounds. That was another key to this game. The Knicks are one of the best overall rebounding teams, very best, I think, second in defensive rebound rate league-wide coming into this game. And now there weren't a ton of rebounds to be had because the shooting was so incredible for both teams. But like that was the biggest rebound of the game. There were a couple additional possessions right before that where the Wolves grabbed big defensive rebounds down the stretch when they finally strung together just a small handful of stops. I mean, the Knicks' fourth quarter was the only quarter of the 8, if this makes sense. You know, each team scored at least 30 in every quarter of the game. The Knicks only scored 26 in the fourth quarter. The Wolves got some big stops late defensively. They finally brought a couple of doubles on Randle when he had his back to the basket. They rotated crisply. They got some big defensive rebounds. Rebounding was going to be a concern coming into this game. And even though the numbers aren't gaudy, they played the Knicks to a draw on the glass. And that's been an issue all season for the Wolves. It's been a strong area for the Knicks and for the Knicks. And I thought that was a really important piece of this game.
And I guess you can probably put a lot of want to on that.
Yeah.
For the Timberwolves, I mean, they're outside of Rudy Gobert. It's not like they have these big bruising guys that are everybody's collecting 10, 12 rebounds. The rebound that Kyle Anderson had at the end of the game, the offensive rebound that led to Taurean Prince's basket, that was the final shot of the game that sealed it for Minnesota. That kind of sums up the way I feel like the Wolves were playing in this game. They were playing with a lot of heart, a lot of scrap, a lot of extra effort, a lot of, like, you could just see it that this one mattered. They were not messing around. They were tired of the way the last 2 had gone, and they were not there to lose a basketball game. And if the rebounding numbers showed up because this was a team that was there to prove a point, however you want to look at it, I mean, that had to have played a role in this game, because there's no reason the Wolves with that personnel against this New York Knicks team should have come away with those rebounding numbers. The only thing that plays a little bit of a role is that the Wolves made so many shots that there just weren't a lot of defensive rebounds to be had by the Knicks, especially in the first half. I mean, the Wolves they went 10 for 10 to start the game. There were not a lot of rebounds for the Knicks to grab off, especially on the defensive end. And that'll help your rebounding numbers. Make a lot of shots.
Today's episode of the Postcast is brought to us by our friends at PrizePicks. On PrizePicks, you just pick 2 to 6 players, and if they'll score more or less than their PrizePicks projection, you can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. You're not competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. I think I said in this read on Monday for the show to pick any Knicks player rebounds over against the Wolves, and that wouldn't have been a good call because the Wolves actually, as we just talked about, did really well in the glass. PrizePicks offers projections on any sport that you watch. That, of course, includes the NBA, the NHL. Baseball's about to start, college basketball all week long. You can make your entry in less than 60 seconds. It really is that easy. Download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code LOCKEDON. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, they'll give you $50. Don't forget to enter the promo code LOCKEDON at sign-up for an instant deposit match up to $100. We should talk about Jaylen Nowell. This was his first game in over a month. I think he missed 10 games in a row. And I thought first half, Jaylen Nowell played great. He had 14 points total for the game. Of course, he, as he always does, was able to pull the trigger 13 times, tied for the Wolves' lead in field goal attempts in this game in just 20 minutes in his first game back. But, maybe a little bit of a rough patch early fourth quarter for Jaylen, but I thought in general he played really well given the layoff, had 4 assists, 3 steals in this game, and it was good to just kind of have that threat off the bench that somebody could go get a bucket. There is something to be said for that, even if it wasn't ultra efficient. He didn't make any threes, he didn't get to the free throw line. It was still good to have that, again, threat off the bench for the Wolves.
Totally agree, and I loved his energy. Sometimes it can come across as out of control, but I felt like he was pretty in control. There were just a couple of times that it was like, all right, we got to rein it in a little bit. I mean, Nowell had 4 fouls in like 10 minutes or something like that in the first half, but you kind of didn't mind because I had missed him. I had missed seeing just that shot out of a cannon kind of mentality, and the mentality he brings offensively is, I'm going to the hoop. He may not always shoot it, though. He's become a smart enough player that he can get into the lane, and he knows if the defense is keying on him or they bring a double team, he will try to kick it out to the open guy. So he's a creator, and I feel like the Wolves have really missed that. I don't even know if I realized how much until I watched him play his first like 3 minutes, and you're just like, holy cow, this Tasmanian devil has been let loose. Where's this guy been? He just made a big difference. And even if his shots are off, he at least forces the defense to move, to commit to him, to sort of alter the way they're doing things, pay attention to him. So whether he can make shots or whether he can distribute the ball, it is an energy on the offensive end that the Wolves have been missing, especially in this last game and a half, 2.5 games, I guess, without Anthony Edwards. I just thought Jaylen Nowell made a big difference in this game.
Yeah, and Mike Conley, we talked a little bit about him earlier, but 24 and 11 for Conley, 6 of 11 shooting, made 3 threes on 5 tries, was a perfect 9 of 9 at the line. And yeah, he did have a big turnover when they were up 6 after they won the challenge in the backcourt. He got, trapped in the backcourt, gave up the ball. The Knicks get the 3-point play and get back within a bucket. But Conley was the one who, initiated that play when the Wolves got the shot clock reset and the Knicks weren't going to foul. It was a bit of a scramble. Conley drives the seam, and Conley was aggressive. And actually, you go back to even Friday and Saturday, Conley's been so much more aggressive trying to get into the paint. And he's always, he penetrates, he gets his floater off and all that. But I just feel like he's penetrating with a purpose now. He's just being consciously more aggressive, knowing that, Anthony Edwards isn't here. I have to do something. And in this game, it was 24, but it was also 11 assists, including the game sealing assist on that pass to Taurean Prince. And that's the sort of play. I don't know that the Wolves point guard play pre-Mike Conley, that's the play we get there, right? I think, frankly, I don't know that D'Angelo Russell makes that pass. I think that play looks different. I think if Anthony Edwards is on the floor, Ant probably takes it all. Obviously, situation could be different, but I think Ant probably takes it all the way to the basket and maybe does score or get fouled. But it's just interesting that there's different ways to go about it. And the way Mike Conley does it is a very Mike Conley way, and it's very professional point guard approach. And it's exactly the calm and the basketball IQ, if you will, that the Timberwolves needed in that moment.
Yep, I agree, and I feel like, you can describe some basketball players and just say he is just hooping, man. He's just out there hooping. He's just playing. I think the exact opposite of Mike Conley, because I think he is always thinking. He is always trying to decide, what does the team need? What does this player need? Where are the other team's weaknesses? Like, he's just thinking the game all the time. And he's a smart, methodical player. That turnover that he had late was really rare. And I feel like he, I don't know if made up for it is the right phrase, but he was aware of it. And then he made a great play right after that. A great play after the offensive rebound by Kyle Anderson to get Taurean Prince the ball and then seal the game. So I love Conley's presence. I really thought it was interesting in the game when Jim Peterson pointed out Conley had Jalen Noel available for an alley-oop on a break there and didn't give it to him. And Jim Pete was like, you know what? I bet Mike Conley doesn't know Jalen Noel's game well enough to know that he can actually go up and get an alley-oop. Yeah. And I just thought that was such an interesting observation. I hadn't thought about it yet. Like, that's right. They haven't played much together. I would have to go back and look at the game logs to see if they spent any time on the court, how many games. And then if you get Karl Anthony Towns back in the lineup, which we're hoping happens here in the next handful of games, then that's Mike Conley having to make sure he gets up to speed quickly on Karl's game as well. But I do have faith that a guy like Mike Conley can do that because he is a game study type of guy. He's probably going to have a conversation with Jalen Noel and be like, okay, what can you do? Could you have done that? Could I have given you this pass? And that might be all you need is just one game with the guy, and now we're good to go. That would be great for as much flux as this team is going to have here in the final 9 games of the season.
Yeah, next up for the Wolves is the Hawks on Wednesday, and I should say, just around the Western Conference, as of right now, recording this a little bit after the Wolves game, the Kings and Jazz have been like a one-possession game for much of the game. They're midway through the fourth quarter right now. But the Warriors have already won. They beat the Rockets. Memphis beat Dallas. So the Wolves currently are a half game behind Dallas. They've played one more game and they've lost that game, but they also have the tiebreaker over the Mavs. The Wolves are in a virtual tie with the Thunder for 8th, a half game behind Dallas with that tiebreaker, and just one game behind Golden State for 6th. But they're also only a half game ahead of the Lakers and Jazz, who are tied at 10th and 11th. So yeah, it's going to be tight. We're going to play this game every night. We're going to scoreboard watch. That's the time of year it is. Anthony Edwards was questionable again for the game Monday. The Wolves do play the Hawks Wednesday back at home. We, of course, have no idea whether or not he'll play, but you and I were talking before, Marney. Who knows? I mean, like, they don't play again after Wednesday till Sunday. You'd like to think the Wolves could beat the Hawks without Anthony Edwards, but we've also seen this song and dance before. So I'm sure, though, the Wolves will factor that into evaluating whether or not Edwards plays Wednesday. The game's big regardless, and then you get 3 days in a row off before taking on the Warriors in a huge game next Sunday.
This is just wild. I mean, it is wild. The number of teams that are involved for the few number of spaces is really incredible. And we've been talking about it all along, but to get to this point, to be in single digits games remaining and still be in this situation is just, it's astonishing, really. And it is wonderful entertainment. The NBA has got to love what's going on right now.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like there's just the sheer number of teams that are involved in both conferences is just crazy. We'll, of course, go live on Wednesday following Wolves Hawks as we do after every Wolves game. So about 45 minutes or so following the final horn, we'll go live on the Locked On Sports Minnesota YouTube channel. If you ever missed the show live, you can always listen to the audio back on whatever your favorite audio platform is, the Locked On Wolves feed. You can find this show after the live show. But otherwise, we'll catch you Wednesday. Big thank you for listening. A big thank you for watching tonight. We'll catch you next time.